Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. Multiplexes now approved in Vancouver, GST now removed on purpose-built rentals across the country. We're going to talk about several significant changes that are happening as we speak when it comes to real estate in our local market. Real quick, if this is your first time to the channel, my name is Hassan. I'm a real estate agent in the Vancouver area, and I make educational real estate content to help you on your real estate journey. I also make content designed to help you make your move in and around Vancouver. So if that sounds interesting to you or you're curious about your own real estate situation, you can book me for a free call in the Calendly link below and subscribe to this channel so you don't miss a future video. So as Murphy's Law would have it, I released a podcast episode on my YouTube channel as last week's video, and between the time of recording that lengthy podcast, I think it was close to an hour, and actually being able to post it for my Saturday morning slots on this channel here, all of the news broke that we were talking about potentially happening. So I'm not going to rehash too much of that. I will point to that full podcast episode if you want to see some more details on that. But in this week's video, I'm going to briefly touch on the changes that have been implemented now and how that's going to affect the market. So we're going to start with the multiplex scenario, the changing of 9 RS single-family zones in Vancouver to allow for multiplex construction, anywhere from 3 to really 8 units, depending on what type of housing the builder or the homeowner is going to provide. So last week that was officially approved. So now these 9 zones, they make up the vast majority of land in the Vancouver area. So this is pretty big news in terms of historical change when it comes to zoning. Now, what is this actually going to do when it comes to new housing units? So in order to understand what this is going to do for supply, we have to look at a single family lot today and think about who resides on that lot, how many families are able to make use of that lot. And we're going to take a 4,000 square foot lot, which is typical in East Vancouver, as an example. So prior to this change happening, you could build essentially a main home with a legal suite. So you'd be housing 2 families in that scenario, and you'd be able to build a laneway in the back, which would house a 3rd family. So essentially, all of these new construction single family homes were housing 3 families. 9 times out of 10, they did take advantage of being allowed the laneway in the back. Now, as we shift that single family lot to a 4-plex scenario, we're now looking at allowing 4 units on that lot of smaller size. Typically, you're going to be able to do 1,000 square feet per unit. So if you really think about it, we're taking all of these lots, we're moving them from being able to house 3 families to now being able to house 4. So the actual change in supply, when you look at it from that level in terms of how many more people, how many more families are going to be housed, it's not significant. And in fact, City Council themselves, they're expecting anywhere from 100 to 200 applications per year. I think 200 is quite an aggressive number based on the people that I'm talking to in the industry, my builders, my clients. 200 is a very aggressive number. It's probably closer to that 100 mark. So, we're short thousands of roofs over people's heads here in the city, and we're looking at, potentially housing 100 more families per year in the city of Vancouver. So overall, when you look at it that way, I don't want to be a pessimist or negative about it, because I think any change is good change. But at the same time, there were a lot of people that were hoping that this plan would be more aggressive in the sense of allowing more density, greater square footage, more amount of units, taller building heights, perhaps areas that would have allowed for more mixed use or more multi-unit type of setups versus just up to an 8-plex. And the thing is, with that 8-plex, if you're to do it, it needs to be on one of the larger Vancouver lots, and it would need to be for rental housing. So that's obviously predominantly something an investor is going to go into. I think from a family perspective, the families that are owning a lot of these single family homes, these Vancouver specials, I really don't think they're going to adopt this sort of a structure, right? Because if they're going to move to a 4-plex, they're all shrinking their individual space. We're seeing a lot of families come back together and wanting to live under the same roof, the same property. So I don't think the uptake is going to be great, but I will never put my thumbs down at a city council or a city that's trying to do things en masse to increase the housing supply. So next up, we're going to talk about another massive change that happened. Again, I referenced this in last week's video, but the federal government now is doing something that they said they were going to do 8 years ago, and that is removing the GST payable on purpose-built rental construction. So I want to clarify, because I had a lot of questions after this came out. This does not cover you as an investor or you as a pre-sale purchaser buying a unit, expecting to rent it out at completion. You will not be exempt of GST. I had a few people reach out to me saying, hey, can I now purchase pre-sales as investments, make sure to rent them out for a year and not have to pay the GST? That's not how it works. This is strictly for purpose-built rental apartment construction. So this is to incentivize the developer to choose this avenue versus building something for sale where they can collect money on right away by way of deposit. They can sell, obviously, and get revenue that way. So the developer has always leaned towards creating these units for sale, understandably, when we work in a capital market or financial markets. Now, what the government needs to do is they needed to make it more incentivized for the developer to actually build these rental towers, because ultimately, when it comes to the housing crisis, I've talked about it before, there's two different crises. Obviously, they're connected, but you have the housing crisis in terms of affordability and housing for sale, the prices of that. But then you have the rental crisis, which I believe is much more urgent for the government. Truth is, when you look at real estate prices, going upwards, all levels of government are essentially expecting and relying on real estate prices to go up when it comes to taxation revenue. And you also got to think about it, for the federal government to remove this sort of tax revenue on the purpose-built rental construction side of it, they are going to recoup that in another angle. So again, I think their battle is rental housing. I think it's a really good move. The people that I've spoken with in industry have said this will move the needle. This will incentivize builders, developers to provide more rental housing. You often get greater density when you go rental housing as well. So there are other perks that municipalities and provincial governments offer for rental housing as well. So package all that together, rental housing now becomes more viable. Of course, we would need to be in a situation where we see interest rates come down. The next announcement is going to be at the end of October. I believe it's October 25th. So we do have some time to go. So bringing it closer to home now, we're going to talk about what's happening in BC when it comes to secondary suites across the province. So BC is going to make it legal to have secondary suites right across the province later on this fall. In advance of that, they are doing a couple things to prepare homeowners. Number one, they are launching what they've called, it's a comprehensive guide. It's called Home Sweet Home. And within that guide, it's going to basically lay out the process for homeowners to create these secondary suites in their home, all the resources they're going to need to make sure they do it the right way and they do it with compliance. The second thing that they're doing at the same time is they're launching an online permitting platform that essentially is going to speed up the delivery of permits for these secondary suites by, I think they say up to, you'd have your permits good to go in about 2 or 3 weeks. So it's really going to speed up the permitting for these secondary suites so they can obviously get placed in the market and add additional rental housing to the market. The other thing BC is launching, and they talked about this before, they're now going to implement it for next year. They're getting people prepared for it. It will actually be in the Home Sweet Home Guide, is they're offering forgivable loans of up to $40,000 to cover 50% of the cost of creating a legal secondary suite in your home. Now, a couple of caveats with this. It's going to be an application-based system, so there's going to be 3,000 people accepted into this program to start. And the second caveat is you need to rent this out. You need to rent that suite out below market rent for, I believe, a period of 5 years. So you can't just move a family member into this suite. You're going to have to rent it out below market rent. How that's going to be calculated, we're not sure at this point. There will be some clarification on that. But those are the two caveats. It's an application-based system. 3,000 applications will be accepted into it, and below market rents is what you will have to charge. So what does all of this mean for Vancouver real estate as we head into the fall? Obviously, a lot of the stuff we're talking about, it's not going to be a quick fix in the area of supply, which is essentially what we would need to have happen. Now, in the market right now, I am noticing an uptick of listings. There are more listings hitting the market, which is quite normal to see in September. A lot of people hold off during the summer. They come back in September. They do list their properties. So I think supply is starting to pick up on a very gradual level. Having said that, if we look at some greater things affecting the economy, CMHC, they just came out with their report on where they see house prices going from now until 2030. They believe that they're actually increasing the amount of homes that we are going to be short. They're saying we're going to be short 4 million homes by 2030, and because of that, they are expecting price growth of real estate at 89%. Now, we have said in the past, and historically data has shown, that real estate prices double every 10 years. Here we're talking about 90% price growth over the next 7. So obviously this is not great news for people that are trying to get into the market, or that can't get into the market today, but maybe younger generations that plan to get in over the next 4 or 5 years. I think every indicator, immigration as well, everything is pushing towards real estate prices continuing to go up. I have yet to see any sort of data that tells me that real estate over the long term is going to go down. So I'm going to end this video with my typical advice that I give people is to cancel out the noise around, and if the finances, the financial side of it makes sense for you, if you have stability in your life and you're thinking of buying real estate, I believe that right now we're presented with a great opportunity. Essentially you would lock in a fixed rate, which of course you could renegotiate down the road. You're up against a little bit less competition right now than you would have been in a hot market. And as we all know, what we've seen in this market, people that have worked it for a while, is as soon as interest rates start coming down, the buyers just come back to the market. And sometimes it doesn't take a lot. Sometimes it just takes a little bit of assurance that interest rates are on their way down, whether that's 1 or 2 rate drops. And that gives buyers confidence to come back. And then all of a sudden, homes are selling for $50,000, $70,000, $100,000 above asking price. So again, cancel out the noise. If it makes sense for you, take advantage of an opportunity here. Get the right product, get it in the right area. I don't think you can go wrong. On the seller side of things, yes, like inventory has ticked up, and I think I've seen, detached homes especially have taken a bit of a hit in prices. Last video I said that we have, plateaued in prices. I think we are now kind of inching downwards a little bit for detached homes. I think at the lower end of the spectrum, the entry-level condos, even the townhomes, I think they're maintaining their price quite well right now. So if you're a seller, just don't overprice, because we don't know what's going to happen over the next few months. And if you overprice yourself today, you may find yourself having to sell for much less than you even thought 3, 4, 5 months from now. So there you have it, guys. I hope you enjoyed this week's video. If you did, hit the like button. What that does is it takes the video and it sends it out to more people so they can also learn from it. And if you like this weekly real estate content, subscribe to this channel so you don't miss next week's video. And lastly, if you're in the Vancouver area or the Fraser Valley and you want to talk about your own real estate situation with me one-on-one, you can book me for a call in the Calendly link below. I would love to chat with you one-on-one and give you some insight on what's happening in the market and how it pertains to your specific scenario. But thank you so much for watching this week's video, and I look forward to seeing you in next week's video.